Good afternoon, Chair and members. I have with bill up today SB 550, the Employee Protection Bill for the legislative employees. Today I'm presenting SB 550 will provide equal protections to the employees of the legislature that they are required, the same laws that are required to the private sector. Currently, the legislature passes thousands of laws that dictate employee working conditions and hundreds of regulations each year on businesses in California. The legislature has conveniently exempted themselves from some of these burdensome laws. If the law is good enough for the private sector employees, it should apply to our staffs as well. Let me give you a few examples. Proposition 65, which requires chemicals and high frequencies of lawsuits against businesses. There's formaldehyde in this building, in our offices, furniture that can cause cancer or birth defects, flame retardants that cause cancer or birth defects, lead from brass objects that can cause cancer and birth defects. Wage and hour, our employees don't get paid overtime, or alternative work schedules, meal and rest periods, which are often abused for extremely expensive PAGA lawsuits. Every day the legislature, we talk about employers and the private sector while we don't live up to those standards ourselves. I'm an employer, so I know the value of these protections, and I know the cost of them to comply with them. Every elected official should become more familiar with the laws they are passing to Californians by applying them to their own employees. Making this change is the right thing to do, as it will end the double standard of employee protections that our employees do not enjoy. I know that Senator Laird, this is the first time I've presented in front of this committee, and some people think that I'm doing this as a statement bill, and I'm not. This is serious. We work sometimes 18, 19 hours a day in this Capitol, certain times of the year, and our employees don't get paid overtime. And in my own business, I pay for those when we work long hours in farming, which we do. We pay the law allows. Now, it's been said that the Rules Committee is really their employer, but they're at-will employees in this Capitol. And last year, I stood on the floor and talked about when we were passing some regulations onto business, and talked about the private sector versus the legislature. And then Senator Chair of Budget Holly Mitchell said, well, they're salaried employees. Well, I will beg to differ that salaried employees are still under our requirements. If not, every California business would make them salaried. That doesn't apply. If you make $100,000 a month as a salaried employee, you still are required as an employer to not allow them to work more than 40 hours a week, and if so, you have to compensate them. So I just want to bring out the point that this isn't some statement bill. I asked my staff if I'd heard from the consultant about suggestions for the bill, and their interpretation was that they didn't seem to understand why I was doing the bill. So I'm very committed to this bill. I think it's the right thing to do as a legislature, and as legislators we should practice the laws that we pass. And so for those reasons, and I asked for an aye vote on this bill. I do not have any witnesses because I asked for some staff to come and testify, and quite frankly they're afraid to testify because they don't want to lose their job. That's how serious this is. So members, I ask for an aye vote, please.
Let me make a general comment. Senator Dahle, I appreciate your efforts with regard to drawing attention to this issue. I'm not entirely clear as to what detail the bill might take on at some point, given my own concerns, which may or may not be the same as yours. Had they been the same, I might have been able to serve as your lead opposition witness myself. I mean, your lead support witness, excuse me, because I do have concerns, and in that vein, I appreciate the issue being elevated. I will just say at the outset, I'm willing to support the bill to give you the opportunity to develop it further, but I'm not sure exactly where it's going in terms of detail, and I'm sure that will be a concern for some folks, beyond my comments today. I just wanted to say that you're certainly welcome to respond. When you close, but let me bring it back. I'm not asking for a response right now. Let me bring it back to other members of the committee for any comments that they have. Senator Newman, then Senator Durazo. and then we'll come to Senator Laird.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Dahle, I do appreciate not just what you're trying to do, but the issue you're bringing to our attention. My analysis contains sort of a finding that from the committee's understanding, there would probably have to be constitutional provisions adopted for this bill to successfully become law, and so there's no opposition. So would you mind speaking to this if you can, so I have a fuller understanding as I make my vote?
Well, I'm not familiar with the Constitution and the legislature being exempt from labor laws. We are exempted from them because we haven't taken action to include the legislative process. We've exempted those employees, which means they have no rights under the law. So, for example, if we don't pay them overtime when they work a 12-hour day, they have no right to come to the legislature and say, hey, demand, just like my employees at my business would go to the labor board and say, hey, my employer did not, I worked these hours and they didn't pay me. And then the labor board would come after me. The labor board doesn't come after the legislature when they don't abide by the law because they've exempted themselves from the exact laws that they passed. So I'm not familiar with any constitutionality of that's not brought to my attention, but I would love to look into it. If that's the case, then maybe we need to put it on the ballot.
Okay, so I guess that's, my question remains unanswered. I appreciate the sentiment, so we'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Newman. Senator DeRosa, you were next, and then Senator Laird.
Yes, thank you. And I too appreciate raising the issue of what the staff, I don't have a complete, and I would need a complete understanding of what the differences are between what is being provided currently by the state to our staff and what they're lacking as far as either rights or benefits or hourly. I don't think I think the example that you gave about overtime, that's really based on minimum wage, so it's kind of easy for most employees, for most staff, to say that they're getting paid overtime. But it's just one example, I think, of what's needed. More clarity is needed. And I just don't know, obviously, minimum wage for most, if not, overwhelmingly, minimum wage is less an issue because there are a lot of other things that are covered by the state. I prefer, surprise, surprise, AB 969, which is Assemblymember Gonzalez's bill, which I'm a co-author of, which says I will be extended collective bargaining rights so that they can decide along with us as the employer what's missing, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be changed. I think that's the best way. That's been, in my opinion, the best way of dealing with anybody's working conditions is let the employees and the employer decide where and what and how much it costs and what's needed and what's not needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rosa. Senator Laird.
Well, I was going to say that Senator Dahle took all the fun out of this with his presentation. I was going to ask him as a lead question how many times he'd been in front of the Labor Committee in 8 years, and he did volunteer that this is the first time. I was going to announce this year's annual May Day picnic at the Dahle Ranch up in Bieber. I think that still might be on. The real thing is I'm sympathetic to the comments that the chair and Senator Durazo said, and I'm going to vote for this bill and give you a chance to work on it, but it's clear that concerns have been outlined, and their concerns you're going to have to consider in moving the bill along.
Others, Madam Vice Chair?
Yes, I want to thank Senator Dahle for bringing this issue forward. I think this is where I admire the fact that when leaders take the initiative, or in this case, the elected, or any business owner takes the initiative in making sure in providing an environment that is optimal for the employees and really puts forward the employees, because I've always thought it's a relationship, right? We have the employers and we have the employees, and they need each other in order to be able to move forward in their endeavors. So thank you for bringing that forward, and I will be happy to move the this bill forward when the time comes.
Okay, that time should be coming very shortly. Senator Dahle, you're welcome to close at this time.
First of all, I want to thank the members, and great comments. I appreciate Senator Laird hazing me a little bit, because it is the first time I've been in front of this committee. But as an employer, I agree. I have a great relationship with my employees, and it is a two-way street. And there are many laws, many laws that are burdensome laws. And all have been passed for a good reason. If you really dig into the laws and find out, there's some abuses, absolutely, on all sides of laws. But when I came to the Capitol, I was just blown away at the fact that our offices don't abide by the laws that we pass. And, you know, we hear a lot of speeches on the floor about employers and employee relations and how the government, how the legislature should be involved in that. So this is an attempt to wrong or right, or right or wrong, I should say, get that right. And there are, I will look into the constitutionality of it. That's just was new to my, brought up to me. And I will share that the minimum wage is not just about, if you're making, we don't pay any of our employers minimum wage. We pay above that, significantly above that. But we are still required by law to pay time and a half on certain hours. When they meet those thresholds, you pay. So I know that there's very few people that work in this legislature that are minimum wage. I don't know what they're, I mean, I know it's more than that. But at the end of the day, they should still have the right to, you know, we passed a bill last year. Senator Jackson brought the bill forward about if you wanted to take 2-hour leave and you could consecutively do that for 15 weeks, 2 hours at a time, and that bill passed. And so those are things that I think our employees should have the right to as well. And so for those reasons, I will continue to work the bill, and I appreciate your vote to get me out of this committee and move on, and I will look up all those concerns and try to get you better information as we take this journey through. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. We can go forward with a roll call vote now. If the consultant would do that, please. Thank you.
The motion is due pass, but first be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary. Senator Cortese?
Aye.
Senator Cortese, aye. Senator Ochoa-Bogue?
Aye.
Senator Ochoa-Bogue, aye. Senator Durazo? Aye. Senator Durazo, aye. Senator Laird?
Aye.
Senator Laird, aye. Senator Newman?
Aye.
Senator Newman, aye.
The motion passes 5-0. That bill is out.
Thank you.